Pluto is stretching its frozen skin right now. It is pushing up giant mountains of water ice where no mountains should ever exist. It is painting its own surface with fresh, flowing glaciers, erasing its ancient craters. It is acting like a living, breathing creature, even though it was declared a dead rock years ago. If you want to see the universe as it truly is, without the old textbook lies, then you belong right here. Subscribe to join a group of people who look past the easy answers and demand the real, hidden story. We explore the universe with open eyes, and we leave no rock unturned. For almost 100 years, we thought we knew the story of Pluto. It was discovered in the year 1930 by a young man named Clyde Tombaugh. He was 24 years old. He was working at an observatory in Arizona, spending his nights looking at tiny dots of light in the night sky. He was trying to find a mysterious planet that was thought to be pulling on the orbit of Neptune. Instead of a massive gas giant like Jupiter, he found a tiny, dim speck of light. It was so far away that it looked like just another star in the background. But it moved, just barely, night after night. He found it by using a machine that blinked 2 pictures of the sky back and forth. The moving dot was Pluto. It was the first planet found in the modern era, and it made headlines all over the world. For decades, that is all Pluto was to us. It was just a tiny dot in a telescope. It was a frozen ball of rock and ice sitting in the dark, freezing edge of our solar system. People drew it as a gray, dead rock in their science books. It was a place where nothing ever happened. It was a graveyard of ice. It was so cold that scientists thought every gas would be frozen solid, like a rock. There was no warmth on Pluto. There was no light. There was no change. It was a dead world. Then, in the year 2006, something happened that made Pluto seem even more sad. A group of scientists decided to take away its title as the 9th planet. They called it a dwarf planet instead. They said it was not big enough, not strong enough, and not important enough to stand next to Earth or Jupiter. People were sad. Textbooks were rewritten. The solar system shrank by 1 planet, and Pluto was left out in the cold. But that same year, we launched a machine to go see it. NASA, the space agency of the United States, built a robotic probe called New Horizons. It was the size of a grand piano. It was shot into space on a massive rocket, moving faster than any other machine before it. Its job was simple. It had to fly across billions of miles of empty space, wake up after 9 years of sleeping, and take the first close look at Pluto. The journey was incredibly long. Pluto is over 3 billion miles away from the Sun. If you could drive a car to Pluto at highway speeds, it would take you over 5,000 years to get there. Even light, the fastest thing in the universe, takes over 4 hours to travel from the Sun to Pluto. That means the sunlight we see on Pluto left the Sun 4 hours before it arrives. It is a place of total, deep darkness. New Horizons flew through space for 9.5 years. It crossed the orbit of Mars, then Jupiter, then Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. As it flew past Jupiter, it used the giant planet's gravity to speed up, slingshotting itself deeper into the dark. It traveled through a vast, empty region called the Kuiper Belt. This is a ring of frozen rocks and ice that circles the outer edge of our solar system. It is a dangerous place filled with debris left over from when the solar system was born. No one knew what New Horizons would find when it finally arrived. The cameras on the probe were powerful, but Pluto was so far away that even the best telescopes could not see its surface clearly. It was just a blur. Scientists had to guess what it looked like. They had to bet their careers and 9 years of waiting on a machine that might fail at the last second. Scientists had a very clear idea of what Pluto would look like. They expected an old, dead world. They thought Pluto looked just like our moon. Our moon has craters everywhere. Craters are giant holes made when rocks smash into the surface over billions of years. If a world is dead, it has no wind, no rain, and no moving ice to erase those craters. The craters just sit there forever, like scars on a face. Scientists expected Pluto to be covered in these scars, proving it had done nothing for billions of years. They thought the surface would be dark and dull. They believed the ice would be hard as steel and completely still. They expected a flat, boring ball of frozen dirt. They thought they would see a world that stopped changing the day it was born. But when New Horizons finally flew by Pluto in July of 2015, the pictures it sent back shocked everyone. The probe flew close to the surface, taking hundreds of pictures. When the first high-resolution images arrived on Earth, scientists crowded around computer screens to look at them. What they saw made their jaws drop. There was a giant feature on the surface, shaped exactly like a heart. It was hundreds of miles across, and the left side of that heart was completely smooth. There were no craters there at all. It was as if someone had taken a giant eraser and wiped away all the scars. The surface was flawless, shiny, and new. It looked like a freshly frozen lake on Earth, not a dead rock in space. It was the exact opposite of what everyone predicted. This was a massive shock. In space geology, no craters means the surface is new. It means something happened recently to cover up the old, scarred ground. It means Pluto is not dead. It is active. It is changing. It is creating new ground right now. A dead world cannot erase its own past, but Pluto did exactly that. The surface was geologically young. That heart-shaped region was given a name. It is called Tombaugh Regio, named after the man who found Pluto all those years ago. The smooth left side of the heart is called Sputnik Planitia. It is a giant glacier made of nitrogen ice, methane ice, and carbon monoxide ice. On Earth, glaciers are made of water ice. On Pluto, it is so cold that gases like nitrogen freeze solid into ice. Let us talk about the temperature. The surface of Pluto is about minus 380 degrees Fahrenheit. That is incredibly cold. It is cold enough to freeze the air we breathe into a solid block of ice. At that temperature, ice does not just sit there. It behaves in strange ways over millions of years. It can flow like thick syrup, even though it is frozen solid. This slow flow is what erases the craters. But here is the puzzle. Ice only flows if there is heat coming from below. If Pluto was completely dead and frozen to the core, the ice would be too stiff to move. It would just crack and shatter like glass when a rock hit it. But the ice on Pluto is moving. It is flowing in giant rings, very slowly. The glaciers are crawling across the surface just like they do on Earth, but with frozen gases instead of water. Did you ever look up at the night sky and wonder if the planets are actually doing things, or just sitting there like dead rocks? Tell me what you thought Pluto looked like before today in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to keep uncovering deep space secrets with us. Let us move to the next mystery. Scientists expected Pluto to be a flat, boring ball of ice. They thought the gravity was too weak to hold up mountains. They thought there was no heat inside to push rock up into peaks. They believed any mountains that might have existed in the past would have been ground down flat billions of years ago by falling space rocks. They expected a smooth, dead surface. Instead, New Horizons found giant mountains. Right next to the smooth ice glacier, there are massive peaks made of water ice. They are over 11,000 feet high. That is as tall as the Rocky Mountains in North America. These are not small bumps. They are huge, jagged mountains made of frozen water. The ice is so cold that it behaves like solid rock. It does not melt. It stands tall and strong. This was another huge problem for the idea of a dead Pluto. Mountains do not just appear out of nowhere. On Earth, mountains are pushed up by the heat inside our planet. The rock melts, moves, and pushes against the surface. But Pluto is tiny. It is only about 2/3 the size of our moon. A small world loses its internal heat very fast. It should have cooled down billions of years ago. There should be no heat left to push up mountains. Now here is the detail people remember most about this discovery. The only way to get mountains on a tiny freezing world is if there is a source of heat deep inside. Scientists looked at the mountains and the flowing ice and realized something amazing. Pluto must have a liquid ocean hiding under its frozen shell. The water inside Pluto is not frozen solid. The water is kept warm by the slow decay of radioactive rocks deep in the core. The heat from that rock keeps a giant ocean of liquid water alive in the dark. Imagine an ocean hidden under 60 miles of solid ice. It never sees the sun. It is under massive pressure from the weight of all that ice above it. But it is warm, and it is liquid. This ocean is what is pushing up the mountains. The water expands as it freezes slowly, cracking the shell above it and forcing the water ice mountains upward. And it gets even stranger. The mountains are not just sitting there, they are floating. The huge blocks of water ice are floating on top of the softer, flowing nitrogen ice. They are like giant icebergs floating in a frozen sea. This means the surface of Pluto is not solid. It is a layered, moving system. The hard water ice floats on the soft nitrogen ice, pushed around by the heat from below. Let us look at the sky. Scientists expected Pluto to have no atmosphere at all. An atmosphere is a layer of gas held around a planet by gravity. Gases are light, and they need strong gravity to stay in place. Pluto is very small, so its gravity is weak. Also, it is incredibly cold. Scientists believed that any gas Pluto ever had would have frozen solid and fallen to the ground millions of years ago. They expected a world in a perfect vacuum. But again, the data was wrong. New Horizons found that Pluto has a thick, puffy atmosphere, and even more surprising, the sky is blue. When the spacecraft looked back at Pluto as the sun set behind it, it saw a beautiful, deep blue haze glowing around the edges. It looked exactly like the blue sky we see on Earth after the sun goes down. It was hauntingly familiar. A blue sky means the air is full of complex chemicals. On Earth, our blue sky is caused by sunlight hitting tiny molecules of gas, scattering the blue light in every direction. On Pluto, the same thing is happening, but with different gases. The sun is hitting the nitrogen and methane in the air and turning them into tiny, solid particles. These particles float in the air and scatter the blue light. But this sky is not permanent. Because Pluto's gravity is so weak, it is losing its air into space every single day. The solar wind, which is a stream of particles from the sun, is blowing the air away behind Pluto like a comet's tail. The atmosphere is escaping into space at a massive rate. Thousands of tons of gas are leaving Pluto every single day. If Pluto is losing air this fast, it should have run out of air millions of years ago. It should be completely empty by now. A dead world cannot hold on to its air for billions of years if it is leaking that fast. The math simply does not work. The atmosphere should be gone. But it is not gone. It is still there, thick and blue. This is where the story takes a turn. What do you think is hiding under the ice of a planet like Pluto? Take a wild guess in the comment section below, hit the like button if this is blowing your mind, and subscribe for more deep space mysteries that change everything we know. Why does Pluto still have an atmosphere today? This is the biggest mystery. If it is losing air, something must be making more air to replace it. Pluto must have giant underground tanks of frozen gas. As the sun warms the surface, even slightly, this ice turns back into gas and refills the sky. It is a cycle. The air goes up, gets blown away, and new air comes up from the ground to take its place. This means the inside of Pluto is full of gas, waiting to escape. It is like a giant frozen soda can. When you open a soda, the gas bubbles out. When the sun hits Pluto, the gas bubbles out of the ice and fills the sky. When Pluto moves away from the sun and gets colder, the gas stops bubbling. The air freezes and falls back to the ground as snow. This cycle is happening right now. It is driven by the weak heat of the distant sun. Let us look at Pluto's largest moon, Charon. Scientists expected Charon to be just as dead as Pluto. They thought it would be a dark, gray rock covered in craters just like our own moon. They believed both worlds were frozen solid and had no connection to each other. They thought Charon was just a dead rock that got caught in Pluto's gravity long ago. But Charon is totally bizarre. It has a giant red pole. The northern tip of the moon is covered in a dark, reddish-brown stain. It looks like someone dipped the moon in red ink. This feature is so strange that scientists named it Mordor Macula, after the Dark Land in the famous Lord of the Rings books. It is a massive dark stain on an otherwise gray world. This red stain is proof that Pluto and Charon are connected. The red stuff is called tholin. Tholins are complex, sticky molecules created when sunlight hits methane gas. The methane gas is coming from Pluto. It is escaping Pluto's atmosphere and drifting over to Charon. Charon's gravity grabs the gas, freezes it at the cold pole, and the sun turns it red. Pluto is literally painting its own moon red. This means the two worlds are trading material. They are not isolated, dead rocks. They are a system. Pluto is bleeding gas into space, and Charon is catching it and turning it into a red chemical stain. This happens right now, while we watch. It is an active, ongoing chemical reaction happening millions of miles away. The two worlds are bound together in a dance of ice and gas. Now, think about volcanoes. Scientists expected there would be no volcanoes on Pluto. A volcano needs heat, and we already established that Pluto should have no heat left. On Earth, volcanoes spit out molten rock. On cold moons in the outer solar system, scientists thought there might be cryovolcanoes. A cryovolcano is an ice volcano that spits out liquid water instead of rock. But even ice volcanoes need heat. Scientists thought Pluto was too cold and dead for any kind of volcano. Then, New Horizons found Right Mons. Right Mons is a massive mountain on Pluto, but it is not made of sharp rock. It is a huge, round dome. It looks exactly like a giant volcano. It is about 90 miles across and several miles high. The sides are covered in strange bumps and textures that look like frozen lava flows. It is one of the largest volcanic features in the outer solar system. This is an ice volcano, but it did not spit out water. It spit out a thick, frozen mush of ammonia and water. Ammonia is a strong chemical that lowers the freezing point of water. It acts like antifreeze in a car. This means that deep under the surface of Pluto, there is a liquid ocean mixed with ammonia. This ocean is warm enough to stay liquid, and it has enough pressure to erupt through the ice shell and form a giant mountain. And the most shocking part? This volcano is young. It has very few craters on it. It erupted recently in geological terms. It might still be active today. If an ice volcano is erupting on Pluto, it means the deep ocean inside Pluto is still warm. It means the heat inside is still fighting against the cold of space. A dead world cannot power a volcano. It takes active, ongoing heat to push a mountain of ice up from the deep. The discovery of Wright Mons changed everything. Scientists had to admit that Pluto was not a dead rock. It was a world with active geology. It was a world where ice acted like rock, water acted like lava, and ammonia kept the deep ocean from freezing. If you knew there was an ocean and volcanoes under Pluto, would you ever look at the solar system the same way again? Share your thoughts below, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about space. It was a chemical factory, churning deep below the surface. The cold of space was not enough to stop it. Let us talk about how Pluto moves. Scientists expected Pluto to just sit in a circular orbit, slowly freezing to death. They thought it was just drifting in the dark, doing nothing. But Pluto's orbit is not normal. It is not a perfect circle. It is a long, stretched-out oval. Sometimes Pluto is closer to the Sun than Neptune is. Sometimes it is much farther away, deep in the frozen dark. Also, Pluto is tilted over. Earth is tilted at an angle, which gives us seasons. Pluto is tilted even more. It is almost lying on its side as it rolls around the Sun. Because of this tilt and the long oval orbit, Pluto has extreme seasons. When Pluto is closest to the Sun, the ice on its surface warms up just a tiny bit. That tiny bit of warmth is enough to turn the solid nitrogen ice into gas. That gas forms the atmosphere. Then, as Pluto moves away from the Sun, it gets colder. The gas in the air freezes and falls to the ground like snow. The atmosphere collapses and snows onto the surface. Then, hundreds of years later, Pluto comes back toward the Sun, and the cycle starts again. Pluto is not a dead rock. It is a giant breathing machine. It breathes in gas, and it breathes out snow. It is alive with change. Let us go back to the moment of the flyby. The tension was high. The New Horizons spacecraft was traveling at over 30,000 miles per hour. It could not slow down. It had to pass by Pluto quickly, taking pictures and data as fast as it could. There was a real fear that a single piece of space dust, the size of a grain of rice, could hit the probe and destroy it. For 24 hours, the spacecraft went silent. It had to point all its cameras at Pluto and could not turn its antenna toward Earth. Scientists on Earth just had to wait, hoping the machine was still alive. When it finally sent a simple signal back saying it was safe, the team cheered. They had just flown past a world no human had ever seen up close. As the data started flowing in, they found even more strange things. Near the equator of Pluto, there was a region of dark, jagged spikes. They look like dragon scales or snakeskin. These are called bladed terrain. They are made of methane ice, but they are not flat. They are sharp, jagged ridges that stretch for hundreds of miles. They are hundreds of feet tall, like giant knives made of ice. This bladed terrain is another sign of change. The methane ice does not just sit there. It goes through cycles. It turns into gas, floats up, and then freezes back down onto the tops of the ridges. This process makes the ridges sharper and taller over time. It is a slow, weather-driven process. It means Pluto has weather. It has a climate. It is actively reshaping its own surface right now. The colors of Pluto are also a mystery. We thought it would be a dull, gray rock, but Pluto is red and yellow and brown. These colors come from complex molecules called tholins, the same stuff that paints Charon's pole red. The sunlight is breaking down the methane gas in the air and creating a dark, reddish sludge. This sludge falls to the ground. It is painting the whole planet in strange, organic colors. Organic molecules are the building blocks of life. They are the chemicals that make up cells, DNA, and living things. Finding them on Pluto does not mean there are aliens there, but it means Pluto has the basic chemistry of life. It has water, it has organic molecules, and it has heat. It has all the ingredients needed for life to start. Hidden deep in its dark underground ocean, there might be the right mix for life to begin. Are you starting to see why space is never as boring as we think? If you want to be the first to know when scientists find something else impossible, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single update from the edge of space. And this brings us to what is happening right now. Right now, scientists are still staring at the data New Horizons sent back in 2015. It is years later, and they are still finding new things. They are looking at the ice flows and realizing they move much faster than they thought. They are looking at the mountains and finding hints of more hidden oceans. Right now, Pluto is moving away from the sun. It is getting colder. The atmosphere is slowly freezing and falling to the ground. The glaciers are slowing down, but the heat inside is still there. The liquid ocean is still swirling under the thick ice shell. The ammonia is still acting as antifreeze. The world is not dead. It is just resting. It is waiting for its next summer, which will come again in a couple of hundred years. The story of Pluto is not over. Scientists are already planning new missions. They want to send an orbiter, a spacecraft that would not just fly by, but would stay and circle Pluto for years. They want to drop a probe into the atmosphere to measure the gases. They want to map the ocean under the ice. They know that Pluto is the key to understanding a whole new class of planets. This is because Pluto is not unique. There are hundreds of worlds like it in the outer solar system. There is a moon around Jupiter called Europa, and a moon around Saturn called Enceladus. They also have ice shells and underground oceans. But Pluto is the first one we got to see up close. Pluto proved that small, frozen worlds can be active. It proved that the outer solar system is not a graveyard. If Pluto is alive, then those other worlds might be alive too. And if they are alive, they might have life. Not little green men walking on the surface, but simple life forms swimming in the dark, warm water under the ice. The discovery of an active Pluto opens the door to the possibility that life is everywhere in the universe, hiding in places we never thought to look. This changes how we see the entire universe. We used to think life needed a warm, sunny beach. We used to think life needed Earth. Now we know life might exist in the dark, under a shell of ice, on a world we thought was a dead rock. The universe is full of surprises. The things we call dead are often just waiting for us to look closer. When you look up at the night sky tonight, do not just see darkness. Do not just see dead rocks floating in nothing. Pluto was a joke for years. It was the tiny planet that lost its title. It was the cold rock at the back of the classroom. But it turned out to be one of the most dynamic, active, and amazing worlds we have ever seen. It is a world of blue skies, giant mountains, and underground oceans. It proves that size does not matter. It proves that distance does not matter. A tiny world at the edge of the solar system can have more going on than a giant planet. It proves that the universe is full of energy and change, even in the coldest, darkest places. Pluto is a reminder that we should never assume we know everything. We should always be ready to be surprised. This is what science is all about. It is about being wrong. It is about sending a tiny metal box billions of miles away and letting it show us the truth. We thought we knew Pluto. We were wrong. We thought small worlds had to be dead. We were wrong. Every time we send our machines into the dark, the universe teaches us a lesson. It tells us that there is more going on out there than we can possibly imagine. The textbooks are already outdated. The story of Pluto is being rewritten. It is no longer the dead rock at the edge of the solar system. It is a living, breathing world. It is a world with weather, with volcanoes, and with oceans. It is a world that demands our respect and our curiosity. It is a world that is still full of mysteries waiting to be solved. And the same is true for our own lives. Things that seem dead or finished are often just resting. They are waiting for the right moment to wake up. Pluto was written off, dismissed, and forgotten, but it was hiding a massive, active ocean under its cold shell. It was hiding blue skies and giant mountains. It was keeping its secrets safe, waiting for us to come and look. So the next time someone tells you something is impossible, remember Pluto. Remember that the experts can be wrong. Remember that the universe is full of surprises. Remember that a tiny, frozen world at the edge of the dark can be just as amazing as a giant star. The truth is out there, and sometimes it is hiding in the last place we ever expected to look. If this story changed how you think about space, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and drop a comment right now answering this one question. Do you think Pluto should be given its planet title back, or does being a dwarf planet make it even more special? Share this video with someone who still thinks Pluto is just a dead rock, and let them know the truth. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next journey into the unknown.